if you look under,
Does it say history?
so under your name, you should have a line
Yeah.
and it should say 2022. And you should have, still having trouble.
Yes.
I'm in the website, but it's not, once I type a name and it's not doing it, let's say.
It's not doing anything?
Yours isn't up either.
Okay.
See, this is not even accurate, because I voted in 2020. I voted in. This is me. That's my address.
Yeah.
But it's saying 2020. Oh, that's what we're only looking at records from 2020 to 2018.
Yes, that's your voter history.
Okay, so where, okay, here, it doesn't tell me anything else.
We're gonna go over what all the rest means. I just want everybody to look at themselves.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So under, oh, it's still coming up.
I did street address too. It's very frustrating.
Mine's still not coming up.
I have the main page, but when I go to scroll, do something, it tells me no.
So you'll notice when you look across, it'll say statewide election or no, statewide primary. No, it's not working.
Yep, statewide general.
All right, you should also see, it'll say early, mail, or regular. EMR.
Yeah.
All right, early means you voted early, right? M means a mail ballot. R means you voted on the day of election, like regular. All right, so make sure that's correct too. Did you vote early? Did you vote by mail? Did you vote? Okay. One more thing to check on your voter record there is up in the corner, you'll see a status and it'll say A for active, which hopefully all of you are A. But if not, then we could talk about how you can fix it.
It's that.
But if you have a voter history, you should have an A. I'm just making everybody's kind of looks like they need help, Kathy, still.
This woman can't seem to
Can't
load
seem
it.
to get it. So does everybody have an A up in the corner? Okay, good. Do you have an A? All right. So, does everybody look good?
Did you say the A is?
So A means for active,
Thank you.
all right?
Thank you.
I is inactive. So what what should happen is if a person is inactive, they should have no voter history, right? Because they're inactive.
Right.
What we found that that's not always the case, right? P, pending, that's usually for 16-year-olds that do the high school voter registration drives, or if they got a license at the DMV, they're pending till they're 18, all right? And then the other letter is AC, that means active with a change. That means that voter is moved. So they move somewhere in the state. So they put actually to tell the clerk that they're moving. So
How about if they moved out of state?
that's different.
So it doesn't say AC. If they moved out of state, it's a different designation.
They use something different for that, which we'll talk a little bit about today. But you will notice, now if you go back, now you checked yourself, if you're ready, go back to that screen of looking for your street. So then you can type in your street.
That's all right. Start again.
Yeah, search by whole street.
All right, so when you're searching your street, are you still having trouble?
Well, I'm not computer savvy.
Oh, maybe Kathy can.
I'm sure she doesn't know the password. I'm trying to download
I
it.
didn't know it was gonna be all computer.
That's all right.
Oh, it's just on your phone. Or on a computer. If you're ready, you can look at your street. So when you look at your street, you might know your neighbor and you can just say, oh, okay, yes. They still live there, all right? But,
You're spying, your eavesdropping.
well, why not?
It's public knowledge.
It's public records, so you don't know who they voted for. And I always say that. Our group, we're supposed to be nonpartisan, so we don't care who you voted for. I just want to make sure everybody's vote counted. And your voter rolls are supposed to be like a checkbook. They're supposed to be exact, right? They're supposed to have however many voters live in that house, it's supposed to say that exactly on your voter rolls. However, if someone died, they're supposed to be removed and not supposed to be there voting anymore. But we know that happened because we saw it.
Exactly.
I just looked up a person who was in a nursing home that I took care of for 5 years. They died and they voted in person and they never left the nursing home. But
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Can we get a list of the deceased?
You can get, so, right, and when you go to your local clerk will say, oh, we get that
Yeah.
from our Secretary of State, but we know that something's not working, right? I don't know which end, and I'm not gonna.
So they get it from Social Security.
So you can, if you just look up, everything is available open records, right? If you just look up people who died in your town and then just double check them on their website and make sure. That's the way to do it. If you notice someone died and they're still on the voter roll, what I would suggest is if you have a computer, if you can find like a death notice, like an obituary, bring
I
it.
have a death certificate in my.
Okay, even better, because that way you can totally eliminate that person because you already have that. You would go to your local clerk and say, this person needs to be, this person's dead, deceased, passed away, they're not coming back, they need to be removed from the voter roll, all right? Because then it becomes identity theft and civil rights issues if your local clerk doesn't follow the proper procedures. Yeah.
What was this
Oh, wait 1 second.
What was the 2020 election? Could have been 2018, but Providence Journal had an article that said we had 278,000 more registered voters than we had people eligible to vote.
Yeah.
How do they check that? Is that just Secretary of State?
Secretary of State is, if you want to think of it this way, manages all the voter rolls for all the towns. That's why when we ask for the Secretary of State information, public records, that's the state. So think of it, all these towns are filtering into this one big database, okay? The Secretary of State is supposed to be managing that using the ERIC system, which is Electronic Registration Information Center. And we use that to help clean our voter rolls, but that's not the real purpose of ERIC. It's going to have to be up to us to have some civil engagement and to be able to be nice, be polite. You have to go into your clerk. They're overworked and underpaid to do this job, honestly, because they're not only doing election records, they're doing other records as well. Or other.
When you say the clerk, you're talking like the canvassing, like in Cranston, okay? You go to the canvassing board, like there.
Yeah.
And then you gotta present your case to them.
You would, if you are interested in doing this, there are very much steps that you do have to take, like I'm trying to explain about the person that, died. You want to bring evidence of that, obviously, right, to your clerk. You can't just say, oh, this person died. I know this person. You have to bring some evidence of that to
So
your
if you go to the clerk, what makes? I'm kind of skeptical. Okay?
How do you know?
Naturally.
Oh, naturally.
Yeah, so you go to the clerk and say, hey, this person died. Okay, here's the proof, here's the obit. How do they do it?
Well, when you go, you're going to ask, like what we did, you're going to ask, hey, I would like a receipt of that, of them taking that
A
over.
receipt, okay.
Okay, and what you do is you keep kind of like a diary or a logbook is what we did. Is every time we would ask our clerk about dead people or any issue, we would go in, we would log it in on a diary of when we went in. And we would have another I would never go by myself. I would always have a witness with me. And I would recommend you doing that, having a witness. In Rhode Island, you can audio record. That's fine. Just don't video. But you can audio any conversation you have with someone at any time, and that's fine. But I would definitely, if you're going to go in, you want to think about it legally,
Yeah.
right? And you want to make sure you have a witness, audio, and get the receipt. And then when you go back to your car, keep that document. And then you're going to keep it like a diary. I went in June 14th
Such and such a time.
1 o'clock. My clerk removed this name, and then keep it. All right. Because you have to think about it that way. So when you're starting to present your case, you will have a written documentation or a diary of
A timeline even.
yes.
may I ask,
Yes.
this voter integrity, is this hosted by the state?
This right now,
No, the website,
our website?
not the one you have us log into.
Oh, that is done by us, by our election integrity.
Election, right.
Because, all right, I put me in, it said I didn't vote, okay, all right. I put my husband in, it said he voted, it showed all his voting.
Okay.
I typed in my street address, it said 0 people voted, and I just put in my
Yes.
home address, and it said, nobody voted at this.
I'm getting the same thing. When I go by street, it's telling me nobody on my street
Make sure
voted,
when you write
including my,
street, if you don't write out street, write ST. You might have to play with it a little bit. It's a little,
Okay.
this is from the state. It's a little bit sensitive. So don't write out Boulevard, write BLVD. Don't write out road, write RD.
Still, I put in.
Oh, okay.
No?
0.
nope, yeah, see, because it's just not drive, it's DR.
Based on what I've seen in Arizona, it's possible no one voted in the state.
You should get
Sorry. I was just talking with someone about that.
So I think,
Just to let you know, it's not coming up.
okay.
If we wanted to identify people.
Maybe we'll have to do a little bit more digging and make sure it's not just,
0.
it might be,
None of them are working.
none of them are working either.
What is this thing?
It's rivoterintegrity.com.
We're working over here on this.
Individual.
Yeah.
My vote,
They're all working on this.
They're working on this. Weird. Okay. I
This
guess
is
it's working on this side's not working, but this side is.
Okay.
So everybody's comfortable with that so far, whoever can get on. I don't.
What did we say AC meant for?
AC means you're active, but there's a change.
Active with a change.
So typically that means,
You're switching
or
parties.
you are going to be moving,
Yeah, okay.
all right, typically. So, hi, welcome. So I think what, our guest or our sponsor wanted us to talk about today was mostly looking for invalid addresses, and looking for businesses, duplicate voters, those kinds of things, invalid addresses. So she would like, if you're interested, we'll talk about that next. And I brought some sheets with me as well for you guys to look at. But when you're looking at your town, wherever your town is, or your city, if you know of an apartment building off the top of your head, or if you know maybe an elderly housing facility, then you could type that in if you know an apartment building.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was about to say, people should, so I was actually made an inactive voter for the last election and my vote didn't count, even though I voted. I ran all the way around the state, 3 different places and voted eventually a provisional ballot, which goes in an envelope. But, so the reason why this happened though, and this is, if I could just put a little plug in here, I love that you're speaking about this because this is what I'm like, I want to mass message something if I put I'm afraid that that bad people are taking advantage of the fact that we're cleaning up voter rolls.
Yeah.
And they're throwing people inactive on purpose. This happened in Arizona. The numbers are not natural. They nearly doubled the number of inactive voters 3 months before the election, 5 months before the election total. And that's not a natural happenstance.
Right.
And so people show up and just like me, there's no way legally I could cast a ballot that was voted. So my clerk had to void my ballot, even though I voted it. By law, they have to provide a ballot to everyone, right? Like, HAVA, like you're allowed to get a ballot, but it's not going to count. Right. Because there's no way legally the state should count it because, so what happened is when I requested a duplicate license, I was actually dropping off signatures for people in the state and I misplaced my license that day. I ordered a new license. It didn't have a place to change my address. So I had moved. So I had put it as my old address. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to call the post office and not have it delivered. So, but I need the certificate here. So I did that on my phone and I accidentally clicked the button saying, check this or submit this for my voter information so that it updates my voter information. I thought I didn't. I accidentally clicked that button. Because of that click, I was made an inactive voter. For me, I don't think it was a malicious thing, but I'm saying that I believe that this is possibly happening maliciously across the country. Yeah. where they're throwing people selectively, possibly, or right-leaning people to inactive voter status.
Sorry to hear that.
So
So,
everyone needs to be really aware of it.
yeah, and I think, if we could, for a minute, if everybody's okay, if everybody's comfortable for a moment to kind of look at different ways of looking at voters. All right. You can look up an apartment building. You can look up, also, if you go back to the tab and it says different ways of looking at voters, there's a tab there.
Yeah.
Okay, and it says they'll be like looking up by year of birth. Go to the tab that says duplicate voters.
City or town.
I think it's the last tab.
Oh, we have to do that?
Oh, wait. Again, when you click on that, and then there'll be, when you click on that, just put the first 3 letters of your city or your town.
What shape, where is it?
Duplicate voters.
I tried it, it won't come up here
So
either.
on your check, I just put in East Providence without the abbreviations and it came up. Okay.
Still want to see the check election records, right?
Yeah.
And okay, I see different ways of looking at it.
Oh, different ways.
Oh, just different, okay.
Put it in there. Yeah. All right.
Oh, I got
And
it.
so then you could choose.
Let's do, okay, so if you,
Okay.
I'm thinking I got logged off.
Oh, my. It's a Wi-Fi here.
It's 3 times.
They have this guy. They have really for 99. Middle initial.
So they duplicates.
An address. They gave. So Alexis F. Same address. Got a different agency, same address.
So you go to the town, tell them, this guy's in here 3 times, this guy's in here 2 times.
All right, guys, I just wanted to let you know, I did explain, I have TikTok running live. As you know, we are in Rhode Island. This is voter poll cleanup classes hosted by Patricia Morgan for US Senate. And this is here in Rhode Island. We do have permission to film anybody up at the podium, but not necessarily the residents and the community. So we are gonna keep the camera facing it that way. Hopefully you guys can hear everything going on okay as they ask questions, and they go over this information to kind of show people how the system, how they can search things in the system right now. But again, this is going to be an interesting day full of really great information. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the likes and the shares, guys. It really does help get the word out, and we really appreciate it. So again, just bear with the fact that there's not a whole lot to watch. Maybe you want to minimize the screen and put up the audio in the background. But again, today is about trying to get as much information as we can up here in Rhode Island about cleaning up the voter rolls.
Are you on Rhode?
Here they come again.
That's first.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and it might come up South Kingston and Southtown. Yeah, that have to be a little bit.
Whatever.
Let me,
And the other one, when I go home, I check on my brothers, because they work. I want to see if they still have voter.
all right, so let me know when you're ready to move on. There we go.
Take a snapshot of that. You know what? Snapshot.
Yeah.
So you have a duplicate.
Yes.
Okay, good. So,
Yes, I found several duplicates.
great, okay. So you might even have a triplicate, okay?
Okay.
What we have found, and I'm gonna use your example in a moment, if that's okay. That what happens is every time you go to the DMV,
Oh,
You-
Jesus.
if you have some kind of transaction, you are getting a new license, you're getting a car, you're re-registering, blah, 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 you can vote, right, or get registered to vote. So what happens is sometimes with the DMV is you might get another registration because you didn't do the box, right, at the bottom. So we get multiple registrations. Now, this should be something that is double checked and triple checked at the state level and at the town level to make sure you're Mary Smith and you live at
At that address. and
10 Main
whatnot.
Street, in Providence, and that you already have a registration. Oh, okay, she didn't mean that. She's already got one registration, one vote, okay? So this gentleman right here, I can use yours for a second. He found, in his town, that this person has three registrations. Okay, so when you look up duplicate registrations, you'll notice, remember we went over earlier those letters, the E,
Correct.
M, and R. You'll notice sometimes with the registrations, not always, but sometimes you'll notice that sometimes one registration would have been used for mail and one was used for earlier election day. So they have two voter IDs,
What if there's no designation?
and they don't have a voter history. Yeah, so they might have two voter IDs and one is just not being used and it's just sitting there, and then the other one's active.
Okay.
So with this one, what I would do, when you look up the voter history, like I'm looking up this gentleman here, and
One below him has 3
yeah,
in there.
that might be like the same name with the same year of birth, right?
Yep.
But the first two, you can see on here that he voted with one ID in 2022, but the other ID was in 2018. So there's two IDs being used. You look
And
at the
Why
voter
would that
history.
be though? Why would they change IDs?
And they.
I asked, I didn't get a straight answer.
Seems like every person should have a single.
I was told
ID.
because of the DMV that's happening by my clerk.
That sounds like it's like you change your social security number.
Yeah.
They also add like the middle initial sometimes.
Yes.
To generate a whole new voter ID. It's the same person,
Same
but
guy.
they.
Yeah, so
Maybe if they get married or
Middle
something,
initial.
they don't want to, but.
They change
an
address.
But you still
But they,
have your
and they
social
change
security when you
the
get married.
address, so they're they're taking an actual person who actually voted.
Yeah.
And then just altering it enough to generate a false voter ID number.
I think this woman, did you have a question?
I kind of had a comment.
Of course.
I had to renew my license like for March.
Yeah.
Like, get a letter in
This is
February.
new, so I'm getting.
I'm getting ready. I'm gonna go to AAA. The letter says, no,
Only voted.
you can't go in person. Don't go. Either do it with this form or go online.
Oh,
So I went online. Later, about a week or so later, I got my license. With another letter saying, we're going to update everything except your voter registration.
really?
Okay.
Okay, you want to say if they registered your choice?
Well, so now I'm like, okay, so I'm not trusting any of this anyway. So I called the board campuses in town and I tell her what happened.
I'm not saying.
Look me up and I'm not a registered voter for like decades.
Good to check though. That's good for other people to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Afterwards, yeah.
So,
Which was weird because
Yes.
I never heard of them telling you we can go in and.
So the ID number I just gave me for who I am, I saw 140
yeah, that's your ID. Yep.
forever.
Yes.
It's 100%
Well, you're saying that it can change,
my number, like my social security.
Well,
but you're saying that they change it.
but sometimes it can get changed, right? So sometimes if you have, if you're fine, you're fine. If you have one registration, then you're fine. But sometimes what happens is, for instance, we just looked up on his phone and he found a duplicate voter registration. How that happened, the only reason that was given to me was this probably happened at the DMV. So if you have just one, you have just one ID, but typically that voter ID is supposed to follow. It's like your fingerprint.
It sounds like the DMV is a bad piece of this puzzle.
It's the culprit.
Don't you think?
Well, the
I mean,
DMV found out.
If every time you have a license, it says, you want us
That's
to
okay.
give you a voter, what do they call it? Make
Registration.
you a voter.
Update your voter registration.
And if you say yes, they could possibly be making two.
What we found out through these town meetings that is that the DMV is basically the final judgment on whether non-citizens or citizens vote, right?
Right.
Ultimately, it goes to the DMV. The DMV is the last arbiter of whether someone is a citizen or not a citizen.
That's not.
Yeah.
So how do-
That's what it is.
Because they're the ones that give, they're the ones that.
Time out. Listen, I have to tell you, I have hearing aids, so I can hear everybody's conversations all the way. The whispering. So I think we need to like
Thank you.
our.
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to voter rolls because that's why we're here today, but we can certainly talk about all the other issues with the DMV or whatever else, but,
So tell us what we can do to combat the problems we see as.
right, so I just wanted to get you used to how to use that website. So what I want you to start thinking about, and very quickly, because you will not need to you cannot make changes 90 days before the election. So this has to be done now. So if you find things like today, please think about maybe next week, either emailing your clerk or going in person and talking to your clerk about having dead people that you found just today in the 30 minutes we've been talking, duplicate voters. The other thing was, if you think of a apartment building, if you can't think of one right now, that's okay, but maybe you're gonna drive home and you can drive by an apartment building and just put the address in your phone.
Yeah, okay.
And then make sure you look it up on that website. Every apartment in an apartment building, right, when you have an apartment building,
Yes.
so when you have an apartment building, you don't live in the whole building. You're not domiciled in that whole building. You have an apartment. So it might be first floor, second floor, third floor, apartment A, apartment B, apartment C. You get the idea.
Yeah.
Every single person that lives in that apartment complex needs to have in their address, I live at 910 Main Street, apartment 1. 910 Main Street, apartment 2, right? The sponsor of this event today was hoping that you could look at that. If you have an apartment building on your street or near in your town, that you could make sure that all of those addresses are complete, because that's something you can go to your town clerk, because you cannot physically be domiciled in that entire building. So that is an invalid address. So I don't know what, I'm giving you a little homework.
Once you find the invalid address, you can go to your clerk and ask that name be removed from the roll.
Well, you want that to be updated. You don't want, so what happens is if someone applies, this is why it's concerning, and I will explain why. When if someone applies for a mail ballot, and then that mail ballot gets delivered to 910 Main Street, but there's 6 apartments there, it will be placed on the top of all those boxes, and anyone, Joe Schmo, can take it, because they don't know which box to put it in.
Right.
Okay, that's why it needs to be exact. That's why your voter rolls need to be like a checkbook. Everything needs to be checks and balances. So if I go to 910 Main Street and I go to apartment 1, I'm gonna find this person.
Condos too, right?
Condos too, yeah, but if you can, I mean, apartments, they're so transient, they're so,
Yeah, they keep switching.
it was something that she and I talked about that might be a good homework and very easy to make sure that those are specific for the next primary and the election coming up, because that's violating the law, and we can help you find that law, because it is by law in Title 17, which is our election law in Rhode Island. You need to have a domiciled address.
So if they don't have a number or a letter after their address,
And they're in an apartment building,
who do we notify?
your local
Town
clerk.
clerk.
Yep.
Where do you find the thing to input an apartment building?
I don't know, I don't know your town, so whatever,
Or
I don't know, where's an apartment building in Ward, Quaker Lane or something like
Sprouse
that?
Point,
Yeah, I don't know what's that.
Cohesive.
Yeah, you could put Cohesive Road. I don't know what the number is. So it would say like 928 Cohesive Road if that's Sparrows Point, but you want to make sure everybody has an apartment
Right.
after that, because the point being, you're trying to lessen the amount of malfeasance happening.
Mhm.
And by doing that, you're doing a really great thing by making sure at least if someone orders a mail ballot, it's going into an actual box and not sitting on top of those boxes or in the foyer and just placed because they don't know where this person lives. Okay, does anybody have any questions on that?
Are they automatically mailed out or do you have to request them?
You have to make a request. Your town clerk will make sure, oh yes, Mary Smith asked, and then she will get a ballot delivered.
It should be.
Should be. But the point is that if you live in an apartment and they don't know who,
Right, they're gonna leave like.
sometimes your mail person will know who it is, but sometimes they just leave it on the top.
Who has to make the request? The person living in that specific apartment?
Well, right.
Yeah, the vote.
Supposedly, yes. You're right, you're right. I see where you're going.
That's what I'm going, that's where I'm going with that. And that's, so maybe somebody says, well, you know, somebody lives there, let's drop off some ballots.
So ballot harvesting is illegal in Rhode Island, right? But,
That doesn't mean anything.
and we could talk all day about that
I
too.
know.
But a good way to do your due diligence is doing that. Another thing, if you live in a town or city in Rhode Island, such as maybe South Kingston where URI is, maybe you live in Bristol. Maybe you live in Providence where Brown is. I have some papers for you to look at. So we have people that live in dorms that are not an address. And, you know, people that live in a college, aren't typically all living in Rhode Island. They, you know, are paying out-of-state tuition and they're not from Rhode Island.
But are they registered in that town? Or do they have to register in the town?
You can be, you have 30 days for the election.
Well, they have to have, so by law, it has to be you have to have some kind of ID that shows that you are a resident of Rhode Island. So,
Even though you're not, even though you're a student and your primary residence is Pennsylvania or?
Well, as long as you register 30 days out, right? And you're,
not necessarily, because you have to have a domicile as well. And-
domicile 90 days out.
And a domicile is not a dorm. So,
No, temporary housing.
Yes.
So it's not.
so again, that paper that Kathy just, passed out to everyone is,
I didn't take your.
Oh.
Are those the same?
you can just go make a copy. for me. So at Brown University, the mailing center at Brown is 69 Brown Street. And if you notice, I kind of put a little note that there's, I forget, 1,200 something people living in a mail center. That's not a domicile, that's a mail center. Right? You can't live in a mailbox, last time I checked. And there shouldn't be 1,200 people living in a mailbox. So if you live in Providence, you might want to think about, I already copied all the information for you. You can go right on that website, RI Voter Integrity, and say, hey, why are there 1,200 people living in a mail center at Brown University, for instance? I don't have standing in Providence. That's why I said if you live in Providence, you need to have standing to go. I don't live in Burrville, so I can't go, and
Yeah, it makes.
you have to be able to live in that town to have some standing to go to your clerk, because they'll look at me like I have two heads.
So dorms don't qualify as residents?
No, they do not.
Really?
If they're renting in the community,
That's different.
that's okay.
As long as it's 30 days out, it says right here, they can register.
Right.
You have to establish.
They have to establish residency.
I was thinking that students were voting though. I don't know
They are
why. Well, they have voting centers at the
Yeah.
university, I believe, and I
Yeah.
think they have voting centers in the student lounge or in the student
Right.
facility.
Big problem. So that I had that done for everybody. And also if you live in South Kingston at URI,
Yeah.
there are people also. See, 50 Lower College Road is Memorial Union. And they actually reduced the number, but it's only 26, but still 26 people are living in a mailbox at Memorial Union. There are no residences at Memorial Union at URI. So if you live in that town, that would be something that you could definitely bring to your clerk and ask questions. And see why that's happening. I will tell you in 2020, it was a lot. So, but for this one, it was 26. Now, if you live in a town that has another type of university that I didn't bring today, if you live in Smithfield with Bryant,
Yeah.
same issue. Look up the address for the mailing center for Bryant. I don't know it off the top of my head, but there are voters that are using that as an address. You can't live in a mail center. That's not where you have your bed. It's not a house. It's not an apartment. If you live in where Roger Williams is,
Yeah.
Bristol,
Bristol.
if someone lives there, I would do the same thing. Look up where the mail center is at Roger Williams. Type in the address in the app that we just did. There are voters that are using that address. I don't remember how many off the top of my head. But again, it's a mail center. There's no bed there, but they're using that as an address. So Rhode Island has a lot of universities. First Mill State, Johnson and Wales. CCRI didn't have anybody. I don't know if it's because it's a 2-year college.
It's not, they don't dorm.
So, but there was nobody. I did check. So I would encourage you, if you do come from a town that has a college or university, to please check. You can just Google search that, or whatever search engine you use, whatever they're using for a mail center address. Type that in, then put it in our website, rivoterintegrity.com, and see if there's any voters. I will tell you, almost everyone had voters, except CCRI. Anybody have any questions on that? I gave you kind of two pieces of homework: apartment buildings, and then if you live in a town with URI, Johnson and Wales, Brown, Roger Williams. I don't know all of them. If someone else thinks it's Bryant, if you have something like that, just make some inquiries. We also talked about duplicate voters. If you found those, that's an easy one to bring in as well. One voter, one ID. So if you found any today, then make sure you bring that to your clerk and ask questions like, why does this person have 2 voter IDs? It's the same address, same year of birth. How can you have 2 people with the same name,
Right.
same address, same year of birth?
But it
living in
has
the
to
house?
it has to be the same name, like you can't, you know how I was just saying, sometimes they'll insert a middle initial, and yet the year of birth is the same. When you've got like,
Mhm.
9 people with the same year of birth,
Mhm.
maybe different addresses,
So that might be
different,
different.
okay. It has to be the same address repeated over and over
Yeah,
again.
so some people will move and they might be 2 addresses. You might need to do, what's nice about the digital age that we live in right now, everything is open source. So if you wanted to look up somebody, because you're like, well, it's the same name, same year of birth, but 2 different addresses. Is it the same person or not? And you'll have to do a little bit of sleuthing, digging, seeing if it is the same person. Did they move? There's some websites I can share with you later if you'd like to do that. Did you guys do that?
We didn't have to.
You didn't have to do that.
No, we didn't.
Did you want to share what you guys did in Smithfield at all?
We did, birth years, which is interesting. One of the
Yeah.
listings, and found people still on the roll born in 1911, born in 1920 something.
Yeah, right.
So that's another area. The other one in our area was storage units. So people use a storage unit address, or if there's a business with an apartment up above, like a salon with an apartment above, it should only be the apartment with the resident. You can't pull from a business. So there's some things, you could look. Before you go, I do have something about visiting a town clerk. Just if you do go that route, I think you'll verify, you go in there positively. A few of us got together and these are the things we found on open source records. And I'm just bringing these to your attention as a citizen. You're not going in there with, because that serves no purpose.
Well, that's not who they are. You're not speaking to that person necessarily. You're
Right, so, and you're just there you just have some questions. This doesn't make sense. Whether they answer or not really is up to them, but you do your due diligence. I think that's important.
Does Rhode Island have a way for homeless people to vote? Doesn't it have to be a
Yeah.
specific, official address though that they offer?
So you might notice, they should be using their town hall or city hall as an
Right.
address.
So it shouldn't just be some random
No,
place
it's
they
town hall.
choose.
Right. Which you brought up a good point of looking at birth year. So that's another way of looking at voters. If you go back to our website, rivoterintegrity.com, that different ways of looking at voters, there was a birth year you could look up, and which is what you
With
did.
that though, then you have to research a little more because you need to find an obituary
Right.
and copy it so you can take it to your town clerk so you have proof.
Yeah.
Why don't I just hand this out? So this way,
That'd be great.
On that duplicate voter.
Yeah.
Looking at another one here, it's got Carpenter David E., Carpenter David E. Jr., Carpenter David H. They all have the same birth year.
So that's
Different
what we were
addresses.
chatting about earlier, which
Yes.
sometimes what happens, yeah.
Because of that,
All 1959.
they're probably.
So
One's a Republican, one's a Democrat, and the other's.
it might be two people, it might not, we're gonna have to do a little digging to make sure, or you could just ask your.
Because I'm learning a lot too. I mean, like, there's just stuff that I'm curious if it applies, like if there's a similar program in my state that I can look up, you know, to kind of check that.
If you wanted to look up, year of birth, you could do that and make sure. We did find some funny things.
Okay.
So for instance, some funny things that we found, it was in 2020. Someone in Providence had a year of birth of 1800. Of 1900, they all voted. That's crazy.
Wow. You have some
Crazy.
people longevity here.
Right. So, maybe type that in too, and you can change the year of birth to do different years. Like you were saying.
And
See.
these, when these mail-in votes go in, do they go in a machine or does someone record them?
Going in a machine at the Board of Elections.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so hopefully it's.
Well, that's another ball of wax.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to stay focused today.
They can't change it though if you.
You can change anything electronic. Anything
yeah,
electronic can be
okay.
changed. All you need is the time
So-
gap. and
Right,
maybe
I want
one-
to stay focused though today, because that's another ball of wax,
we
but,
are on a time crunch too, so.
yep. So I want to make sure, did anybody have questions about how to look up yourself on that website, duplicate voters? And then we also did, apartments. How to get started on that,
What's the actual date, Sarah, to cut off for cleaning?
because it's, let me think. Count back 3 months, 90 days of August.
November 5th. No, even before the primaries.
The primary is, we're like wicked close.
Right.
So if you do, of me being Rhode Island there for a minute, wicked, but
End of July.
yeah.
August, yeah.
End of July meeting.
Yeah.
So if you do, I would really encourage you to do that. I can't do everybody because, I don't have standing. So I would just want to encourage you to at least have a plan. And I know you're going to talk about, you said you did a little bit with the town clerk already, but do you have it? So when you do find
I didn't
something,
go, the other part of our team, went, but she's very nice
yeah,
and very
oh,
open.
they are.
So I think that's the thing. I think when we first started this, it was kind of like everybody had their back up and I mean, wait a minute, you know, this person has a job too, so you just have to approach in a professional way and you're just questioning something.
Right.
And if you look at this, you know, you bring a record, you might keep a journal. Take a photo for your reference so you have it. You might have somebody writing down, you know, what happened. Now this Title 17, that's something else that I'm not, it's helpful if you have, printed copies of that one part of that law.
About the domicile, you mean,
Right,
about residents?
right, about residency. It's helpful if you carry that with you. And I don't know, you'd be more versed in telling them where to go and
So if,
to print it out.
you could print that out, it's on the Rhode Island Legislature website.
Well, if you just type in Rhode Island Title 17, you search domicile, right? Probably do that.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Or residents.
I think it's 17-1-3.1 off the top of my head. If you wanted to use that as when you're doing the apartments or you're doing duplicate voters and that kind of thing, you want to make sure you know that law. Being able to show your clerk, well, this is what the law says. But we follow the law. That's what we did. And we kept a running record. I know I said that earlier too. We want to make sure you have someone with you, a witness, you can audio in Rhode Island. So that's fine. Just not video, just audio. But we did that with every time we met with someone. I'm not sure if you did with your team, Kathy, but I know we did.
I
with
don't think she
ours.
did.
And then also keep it like a diary every time you have an interaction. Ask for, can I have a printout of that? Removal of the dead person or of the duplicate voter. Can I have a copy of that? And just keep it in your book or your log book, a binder, if you will. Each time you go, make a notation of the day and time that you went, who went with you. That way you're keeping that log. Fraud, if anything happens, then you know that doesn't go away at any time. So have something to present as we go along, then we have those records to be able to say that we don't have clean voter rolls. Do you have any questions on that? No?
When is the date that they would challenge something? Let's say I found a dead person, I documented, I went in, checked all the boxes, got the proof.
Yeah.
And then went in the day after the election, that person's still in the voter rolls
You gotta do it immediately.
immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
No, we have to.
Well, we don't take them out though.
No, no,
It's the town clerk.
They'll give you a.
they supposedly did it, and you were satisfied, and you keep your records, and then you check the day after the election, and that dead person still voted.
Well, I think
You
we
have
should
to
check
go
that
back.
before, just to make sure they took them out.
Well, that too, but then you want to challenge
Yeah,
it.
Like how many,
You want to make sure ahead of time.
they have to do it within a certain time.
Well, they have to, check off on the election and validate the election and make.
Oh.
Right.
Also, the multiples, so I've been working the polls for 20 years, and it was because someone was voting next to me in Barrington for somebody who died. Okay, and, but anyways, I've taken care of several people in nursing homes. So during COVID, here's what happened. Had a gentleman I took care of, I was his legal guardian. I registered him to my address in East Providence. He was at Grace Barker and Warren. Somebody went into the nursing home and registered everybody. In the meantime, I didn't know he was registered in Warren, okay? And I didn't know until I started to get multiple voter registration things. Meantime, I applied for a handicap plate for him through his doctor so I could take him out and park in handicap when he was with me. And they needed a picture ID. He still had a valid license for Barrington with a picture. Other than that, I had no other picture ID of him being in the nursing home. I mailed that back to the registry. He got registered in Barrington. I had 3 registrations for him. So it was like a shit show, just trying to get him off the road. And he was in multiple places, but the registry is the worst thing. Because if you're undocumented and you have a license and they say check off the box, how do they know?
It comes out of, yeah.
And also too, with this gentleman.
That's from Rob Rock, the state,
Yeah,
deputy
this
secretary.
gentleman who was registered in three different towns, one city and 2 towns, he was like, how do you clean this up? But the other place to check is in nursing homes. Check everybody you know who's died that you know in the past 5 years. Make sure they're up because when I handle their estates and I go into the probate here, office in the probate court, no one goes across the hall, like literally, to canvassing and takes them off. They don't talk to each other. Exactly. And they'll tell you, well, that's the city or the state. But it's like really?
Yeah, hello?
That's a great idea. I didn't talk about that. Yeah.
So
Talking
you
about that too.
take the death certificate, go over to canvas and make sure they take it off.
That should almost be a law.
It is.
So
It's like identity theft, because that's identity theft, right?
Right.
And then that's all these civil rights come up too, because you're violating someone's civil
You're
rights.
diminishing everybody else's vote as well, like stealing from all of us.
The franchise.
All right, so that's why we
What
all.
if the guy does
can't-
early voting? Okay,
Exactly.
and then dies a week later, still before the election.
Of us.
They'll still count
That's
it according to the state.
The state said that. It
Yeah.
doesn't count.
You have a question?
Well, I was just thinking because, obviously this is unusual that, and it's great that everyone is participating and trying to help out. It's wonderful and I really appreciate it. But I was just thinking, if all of us are doing this and we go to the town hall, are they going to be like staffed to take care of all this? As you say, they have their regular work that they have to get done on
That's
a
a great
daily
question.
basis. that
So
they-
what we did, just to not, everybody's got a big job to do, and they do too. We didn't go in with a big stack of names. We just went in with about 5 to 10, no more than 10 at a time.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want to overwhelm our clerk either. We tried to be, everybody's trying to do their job. We are trying to do a civil service as well for your
Right.
town.
I'm
So,
just wondering if who's ever in charge there, they should be aware that, people are checking.
yeah,
So they're gonna need help.
they do need help. That's the problem too. I think it's too big of a job to be able.
Just the county clerks and whatnot.
Yeah. So, and like Kathy had a good point too. You never want to go in like your clerk is,
Yeah.
doing something. They're just doing their job, just like you and me. They're just regular people that are just trying to do their civil service too. But sometimes things get overlooked. And I think sometimes the job, just from my understanding, is the job is almost too big for one person or two people to do.
And we should have smaller precincts too, which is another point. Like in Exeter, Mary B knows everything. Like
Right.
she would, but in other
It's a small
places,
town.
in Warwick, that might not be the situation.
Exactly. So that's something else, but I don't remember what the other was, but I would just recommend just kind of going in, be friendly, be nice, be polite, be friendly, and just say, I'm just trying to do my civil service, but I've noticed these things and really want to try to help you out. That's what we did. If anybody lives in Providence, does anybody live in Providence here? No. Okay. Or, I know Warwick. I have some stuff for Warwick too. And if you live in East Providence,
I do.
East Providence.
okay. Warwick, Woonsocket, Newport. I have some other information. You want to pass these out for me? To those people, this is East Providence. And Warwick, Woonsocket, and Newport on one page. So these are people that we know are using an address at a FedEx store
Yeah.
or a UPS store. Again, that's not a residence. Easy to take off your voter rolls. East Providence is on there. It's on here. on one page. I just put on one page.
And they're using a what? They're using.
So it says it at the top, it's a commercial mailing receiving agent.
Okay, yeah.
And it says this refers to a commercial mailing receiving agency such as a FedEx store or a UPS store. And they're using this physical address.
It's the Rhode's Providence, yes.
Okay, so that might be a UPS store, FedEx facility.
Yeah.
So if you could, that's something else I provided for some towns. I didn't know who was coming today. So if you are able to do that, that would be great. And then, like I said, I have some more potential duplicate voters for Warwick that I was able to find as well. I have other towns too. So if you leave me your email, I can send you some more duplicate voters too.
Want us to add what town we're in? That would be good. Yeah, on that, I don't think I put East Providence.
Okay, well, that's good for you to start. I feel like you have
Yeah,
a good start.
This is a good start.
So-
Once I get going, then I can reach out to you for more.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, please reach out to us at RI Fair Elections at protonmail.com if you have questions. And RI Fair Elections
All right.
at protonmail.com.
At what?
Proton Mail. Proton Mail,
Proton Mail.
one word. And then myself or someone will get back to you if you have a question or if you want more information. Sarah.
Were you saying that you don't have standing because you're saying we have to be in our individual towns to approach with these things?
At the town level,
Right, so that's why
It's
that's
different.
That's standing.
Yeah, and it's a little different when the Secretary of State is asking for our information, which
you could do that, but yeah, right, but you're saying,
typically it's supposed to be the lowest level has the most power.
yeah,
It's been flip-flopped,
unfortunately.
but honestly, if we as people have the most power, then it goes to the precincts and the town.
And then it gets to the Board of Elections, who just does whatever they want to. Right. Do you want to talk about it?
No, I'm staying focused. So yeah, as long as that's what this class is about, too, is telling people like, you have the power to make these changes because the government is on us. It's not the governor, it's not Secretary of State,
Other
it's us.
addresses.
So we are the people that rule this constitutional republic, and that's how it's supposed to be, but we've been told it's flipped. Right? So if you are too overwhelmed with all of that information I gave you today about voter rolls, and you still want to get involved in our elections, there are other ways you can get involved. I'm just going to wrap this up. I brought poll worker. If anybody would like to be a poll worker,
I already signed up for it.
if you want to be a poll worker, I did bring the cover sheet and I brought the application. I have that up here. You can apply. They will need people. We need good people to be able to supervise what's going on at the local level, right? That's what we've been talking about today. Another way to get involved is, and I didn't bring it today and I apologize, but nursing home supervisors, you can. Oh, great. Awesome.
Oh, great, yeah.
So nursing home supervisors are the people that, it's again, a paid position, just like a poll worker is a paid position. And you are a bipartisan team and they train you at the state, you take like a Zoom call. And they will train you how to be a nursing home supervisor. If you go to the Board of Elections website, I apologize, I thought I brought some tape, but I did not. You go to the Rhode Island Board of Elections website and you type in nursing home supervisor, it will bring up the application for you to apply. What you do is you'll be going to nursing homes that are in the program to get ballots for residents, and you're just going to bring ballots and then take them back. But you're a bipartisan team, you're not supposed to help without voting or anything, they'll teach you all about that. But it's basically.
Do it if you're running for office.
You can't do it if you're running for office.
And you have to do it as a team, because it has to be two
Right.
reps
It
there.
has to be bipartisan, so you have
Has
to
to be
have
both.
Democrat, Republican, right? But you can, that's another paid position. It's a way to get involved if you wanted to do that. If this was too overwhelming, but you want to do some kind of civil service, it's a great way to do it. Another opportunity would be poll observing. So you could be a poll observer. You would have to sign up with your political party. And they will be contacting you to be able to do that. We're very interested in probably doing that. I know some of our members of our team want to be able to assist with poll watching, poll observing, and poll running. We really want to make sure we're armed as much as we can at the precinct level to make sure we have people that are poll workers, people that are observing. So those are the people that kind of sit on the side table, just kind of watching sometimes. But there's rules and regulations around that. It's a very important job. I don't know if you remember in 2020, there were poll observers that were shut out of watching and observing. It's a very important job because you're the person that will be making sure that everybody that's registered coming in to sign on the poll pad, for instance, is a registered voter, because you'll have voter rolls that we just talked about for a little over an hour.
Hopefully.
So
Anthony and I did it in 2022. We had no paperwork. And they said that they don't always see paperwork.
interesting.
Is that under the Rhode Island Board of Elections also?
No, so if you want to be a poll observer, if you're a registered Republican or a registered Democrat, you would contact the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, and they would facilitate the observing. I would think our group would also like to participate in that or help get people armed, because we think that's very important. We had some success in a town with this special election. We made sure we had bipartisan poll worker. We had a poll observer and a poll runner at the precinct for a special election, and it was great. Because we got a lot of engagement with all these people coming in. Not that they saw anything, but it was just had the eyes there. Right?
Keep them honest.
That's
Or
what
try
our job is
to,
to be able
anyway.
to do, is to make sure everybody's transparent and the process is legal for all sides.
Are folks, sorry, are they at the Board of Elections too, or is that only at the precinct?
So you can also be, thank you for reminding me, also at the Board of Elections, you can also oversee after the election, how they're auditing the ballots. I would encourage anybody to volunteer for that as well. That's a volunteer position. There are some things that happened in 2022 that I don't think people will be very excited about, that people were, they didn't have enough people to watch at the Board of Elections. We had some of our team there observing.
Is that Plainfield Pike?
Yes.
That's where I went.
Oh, good. Did you
Yeah.
observe it?
No, I'm signed up for it.
Oh, okay.
I have to go.
So if you want to observe after the election too, where they have the ballots and they're running them through the machines, and you can do, see how they're.
Yes, because you watched that woman run the same batch of ballots
But we
3
need
times.
people there.
We
You
need
can't,
people
yeah.
there too.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but we need, especially need people there. Yeah.
Yeah, now they encourage people to come and be an observer at that process as well.
When they do those ballots, is that a 24-hour deal or is there a time?
No, they have certain times that they do that.
Okay. That's why
I
I'm
see where
asking.
you're going again.
Sorry.
I see you. But yes, they do have certain times that you sign up and you go.
Okay.
Yeah, we
So I can say,
and you do not.
I can say I want to go from 1 a.m. until 5 a.m.
You can park your car out front.
Right? Just leave the
Yeah.
keys in the box.
Through rotation with mother.
That was, unless you had something else to add for today. If everybody wanted to grab something to eat, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it on a Saturday afternoon, a beautiful day. I really appreciate it. And if you have questions, just reach out and email fairelections@protonmail.com. And yeah, if you have questions about apartment buildings, duplicate voters, dead people,
Yeah.
UPS stores, I'm trying to think what else we went over today. Anything. Remember, your voter rolls have to be clean. They have to be like a checkbook. And you should be able to verify everybody at that address. That's all you're doing, right? We're not looking for who they voted for. We're just looking for making everything is accurate. So I hope you have a great day. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Yeah, questions, just come up. But I see you, I know.
What do you mean you see me? It's where I'm going with all that stuff, right?
Flip the camera around, right?
And unseen. Oh, right over here.
Those chairs?
So I'm gonna move out of the, just 1 second. So, hello, everybody. It is nice to see all of you guys. I do have several platforms running right now, so I do apologize on 2 different devices. But it is really great to see all you guys today with your meeting. Today, this was a voter roll cleanup class. I had permission to film the people speaking in the front of the room, but not the residents. But I wanted to really make sure that we were bringing some new information to you guys so that you could learn how to clean up voter rolls potentially in your state as well. Again, today was here in Rhode Island. This was Patricia Morgan for U.S. Senate here. And again, that's what we were checking out today. However, Wayne and I did see some really cool roadside Flag Patriots just down the road. So if they're still out there, we might stop and say hi. And there is Bacon Fest in Connecticut this weekend. So we are going to check out Bacon Fest a little bit later. I'm going to go live again a little bit later today, hopefully on all of the platforms so you guys can find us. But again, it's going to be so much fun. Like I said, totally doing Bacon Fest. Totally doing Bacon Fest. So it's going to be a great day while we're up here in the New England states, up in the Northeast.
Thank you guys for all being here. Thank you for all the likes, shares, subscribes. Remember, if you guys are interested in helping clean up your own voter rolls, I'm sure that most of this stuff applies in every single state in the U.S. So make sure you're getting with like-minded individuals in your neighborhoods. You can always check those kinds of things out on your own and take them to the town clerk. That paperwork had some really great suggestions on it. I'm going to take some other photos, make sure we put them up on the socials. And I hope you guys enjoyed this content today. So we will. Oh, sorry. Oh. My phone's giving me an issue. Okay. So anyway, we're going to go live again a little bit later. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and do Bacon Fest and some of the other cool stuff. And I will talk to you guys very, very soon. We love you all. God bless. Have a fantastic Father's Day weekend if I don't see you guys. And we'll be back again soon. Take care, guys. All right. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. There we go. And then, guys, I'll see you later.